They also want to add statins and Prozac to the water. So now they want to treat everybody for cholesterol when they admit the statins attack the liver. So I guess just hundreds of drugs in the water. I mean, this is THX 1138, Brave New World. Dr. Blaylock, thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Well, thank you, Alan.
I tell you, they're really coming out of the closet with all of this. I mean, you were reading it decades ago in medical research journals and talked about it, and now they're just coming out with it.
Well, yeah, this has been a dream of these people for a long time, is to remake humanity. You know, if you look back in some of the early writings, and as I quoted, I think, on one of your programs about Dr. Lilly's book on the history of molecular biology, and she talks about how in the early days the Rockefellers were obsessed with remaking humanity, changing their biological structure. In the beginning by eugenics, but later they realized that DNA manipulation is a better method, and that he funded the tremendous growth of the biological programs throughout the United States and some of our major institutions with that goal in mind. And now we're seeing this come to fruition, where they're seriously and openly talking about, well, we need to make it where we can remove fear from soldiers so that they'll be able to fight better in war, which means they're going to be more likely to die if they don't have this protective fear impulse. Remove stress, so all of us sort of apathetic and willing to accept whatever we're told. Yeah, I mean, they're really into some serious things here, and their biology is teaching them how to do it. And we're finding you can manipulate the brain and remake a person's whole neurological makeup. Well, some years ago, there was a book written about biological control of the mind, which they said that the last refuge of your individuality is your own mind. Well, now they want to attack that last refuge. It's an assault on it, so that you cannot think what you want to think. You cannot have your own mind, your own private thoughts. They're going to control them. And this is serious business. They're seriously talking about this, and they're so excited about it, they don't really care that anyone knows. And I found it interesting, you know, in this article that was in Huffington about the lithium in the water, the way they treat their opponents, that anyone who disagrees with this is a knee-jerk, irrational person.
That's right. We've got a George Soros-funded publication in the New York Times that they quote says the same thing, that you're a kook if you don't want the government, and see, they psychologically put it back on us, which is just asinine. I mean, imagine if your neighbor showed up at your house and said, I want to put lithium in your water to make you servile. You'd say, get out of here, crazy man. But the government and the media is pushing it, and then they preemptively say, first, we were kooks for saying this was their plan because we were reading their own textbooks and documents. Now, as they roll it out publicly, they preemptively say, you're crazy if you don't let us drug the water with a toxic antipsychotic.
Exactly. That's exactly the stage they went through. At first, they deny it, say you're crazy for even saying they wanted to think about it. Now that they're admitting they were planning this all along, you're crazy to resist it. Now, it's interesting, the whole justification of the lithium in the water is that it reduces suicides and violent behavior. But their previous program, fluoridation, shown by several large studies, one was the Dartmouth University study in which they looked at 280,000 children, found that it increased, when you fluoridated the water in a community, it increased the lead content of the water. That increased suicides and violent behavior and criminal behavior. A Canadian study looked at the same thing and found when you fluoridated the water, it doubled the lead content of the water. When they compared communities that had fluoridated versus unfluoridated water, they found higher suicide rates and violent crime rates in the fluoridated communities versus non-fluoridated when they were matched for all other criteria. Well, it was also known that when lead is even increased slightly to the content that this fluoridation was causing, produced hyperactivity, it increased substance abuse, it increased suicide, and it increased violent behavior and crime significantly. Well, these are the very things now they're giving us the justification, putting another metal in the water, lithium. Well, if you want to reduce substance abuse, suicide, violent behavior, and crime, just take the fluoride out of the water and take the lead out of the water. That's the easiest way to do that, and that's what the Safe Water Act says. The purpose of the EPA is to remove contaminants for the water. Now they reverse that. They're going to add contaminants to the water. Now, if you look up lithium, lithium is considered a toxic metal. Now, in the concentrations they're proposing using, yes, it does have some beneficial effects on brain protection, brain growth, reversal of neurological conditions, reductions in suicide, all of these things they're claiming. But there's a lot of problems that we learn from the fluoridation idea of putting it in water. Number one, there's no consideration of the interactions of lithium with the other components of water and contaminants.
Well, that was my next point, studying biology. And, of course, you are a top brain surgeon researcher, know a lot more than I do, but just studying when you have a bunch of chemicals mixed together, they have a magnifying effect on each other, correct?
Yeah, we call it synergistic toxicity. But, water has organochloride compounds in it, which are toxic themselves, has industrial chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, other metals. And we know that lithium is a highly reactive metal, just like fluoride. And so it tends to interact with these other metals and components and chemicals. Well, no one's ever done a study to see, well, what happens when you mix them? What does it increase the toxicity of these other metals, etc.? Well, we did find that with fluoride. Unknown at the time when they first proposed putting fluoride in water, fluoride highly reacts with aluminum, forms an aluminum fluoride complex, which is a powerful G protein receptor stimulator. Well, I don't want to take a drug that stimulates my G proteins because that can make breast cancer grow faster, other cancers. It can have all kinds of neurological effects. But that was something that they found out decades later. Well, what are we going to find out about lithium decades later?
Well, the point is, government has no business saying, we're going to calm you down and put an antipsychotic in the water. And from my research, just reading the basic encyclopedia on lithium, it's similar to fluoride in that it builds up in the body, large amounts of it, and so that over time, in fact, I was reading when they start dosing people with lithium, a lot of times it even takes a few weeks to build up until it's at the full dosing point.
Well, and at that point, it becomes a highly toxic metal, and there's been quite a few fatalities associated with lithium accumulation. Now, that was also the problem we had with fluoride. They were, in the very beginning, and even now, they said, well, gee, it's only 1 part per million. Well, actually, the fluoride in water is the greatest source of fluoride toxicity in the environment because you drink a lot of water. In the summertime, particularly if you're outdoors or an athlete, or you have certain medical conditions like diabetes, you drink a very large amount of water, and so you're consuming much larger content of fluoride. Well, the same would be true for lithium. Your intake is going to be much higher if you put it in water than if you just have it in natural sources, primarily food. Also, what's forgotten about this, and the same thing happens with fluoride, when you put a metal in the water purposely, and then you water your plants with it, your vegetables, your gardens, that you're going to eat these fruits and vegetables that are watered with the lithium-enhanced water, the plant accumulates the lithium, so then you're getting bioaccumulation. The longer you do it, the higher the content. And
for those that don't know, that's just like the food chain where you don't eat swordfish because it's got hundreds of times the mercury that a smaller fish has because it's on the top of the food chain. And in the last 5 years, they've approved, and it's being widely used, sodium fluoride as a pesticide on crops, and they admit it bioaccumulates through the cell walls of the plants, and so there's massive levels, and thousands of foods don't have 1 part per million, that's mixed in with the water that's used in their production. They're actually adding upwards of 900 parts per million in TV dinners, in powdered eggs. That's all authorized by the Food and Drug Administration. And then you have the toothpaste that the children are using, very high levels of fluoride. Then you look at how the term sodium fluoride is a catch-all for hundreds of chemicals that they put in the water. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, and you have fluoridated medications. We're now exposed to so much fluoride. We've exceeded recognized safety limits that are recognized by everybody, EPA, FDA, the ADA even recognizes that at those levels, there's no question of toxicity. Well, certain parts of the brain accumulate doses or concentrations of fluoride that are several hundred parts per million, which everybody agrees is toxic. Now, they even use fluoridation as an example. Oh, look how successful fluoridation was. Well, we have poisoned millions of people with fluoride. It induces arthritis, bone fractures, infertility, neurological disorders. I mean, the list goes on and on. Cancer, it stimulates cancer growth. All of this is ignored by the public.
And the mainline government university studies admit macular degeneration. So if it's eating and destroying the cells in the eye, which is connected to the brain, as you know, doctor, what is it doing to the brain?
Well, we have evidence of brain damage by fluoride fluoride accumulation. That was done by Dr. Molnick. She presented it to the CDC, her program, her research, which was printed in one of the most prestigious neurotoxicology journals. And for her trouble, they fired her. And they made sure she never got another federal grant because she showed the brain accumulation, particularly in parts of the brain that have to do with learning and memory, was significant and toxic. So, here we go again. We get all the assurances in the world, and then when the research starts showing tremendous toxicity and significant problems, it's all covered up. They can make sure the media doesn't cover it. They can make sure that the public is never aware of it. They spend just enormous amounts of money on advertising. For instance, in this article about the virtues of lithium, they quote the EPA that fluoridation of the water is one of the 10 greatest advances in medicine in history. Well, the studies, every study that has been done in modern times has shown fluoridating water does not reduce cavities at all. In fact, a number of studies shown that it increases dental caries.
And, doctor, as you know, in the last 10 years, 3 separate times, the head of the EPA and FDA, they all joined together. Their top scientists, over 90% of the Food and Drug Administration toxicologists, signed an open letter in 2000. In 2004, again, I've had them on the show, top chemist, toxicologist, and they explain that it's not just fluoride, it's other chemicals being added, and that they know it's hurting people, but the government still won't remove it. But then when you, as a top brain surgeon, to come on and explain this to people, the system just responds by laughing at us. But the controllers know what they're doing. I mean, look at 110 years ago. The founder of the Rockefeller dynasty was funding Pinkerton Security to literally Gatling gun protesters all over the country to go in Colorado and massacre whole groups of families that had struck claims on gold mines that was their property. And these guys openly talked about a scientific dictatorship. They went and funded scientists to come up with systems to take over education, to dumb people down, and to drug them, to make them servile. And 110 years later, we say, why can't the American people get angry and get upset? Because there's mercury in the vaccines. There's bisphenol A in all the packaging. They're now admitting, yeah, we want to put lithium in. The fluoride isn't working enough. Stay there, doctor. I want to talk about how fluoride and lithium affects the brain and makes people servile. It's just so incredible that they're out in the open with this now. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Dr. Russell Blaylock will give you his websites as well.